Well, hi there. I'm sorry we haven't gotten a chance to talk yet. I've just been releasing podcasts like an asshole. I'm sorry. Generally, when I start something, I just kind of start it, and it's not done. It's not feature complete, but here we are. It'll get there. Um, so, in a sense, at this point, the podcast is kind of in beta, at least for the next few episodes. That might be true. I'm planning on around episode 5. This is episode 3. Things will sort of be more solidified. That's when the theme, which is refi and impact DAOs and stuff like that, will be a bit more solid. Um, right now, the episode you're about to watch is actually from a project that kind of got scuttled, that I was doing with Forefront DAO about DAOs. This episode is about onboarding. So it's a great episode. It's all with Brad from Index Coop, who wrapped me up in a warm, chill Australian blanket. Can a blanket be warm and chill at the same time? I don't know, but he makes it happen. A lot of great insights in this thing. It's all about DAOs and onboarding, which is mainly what he's doing for Index Coop. For this, I would like to thank Jates, Dwayne, Brian, Mo, Anne, and especially Caroline and Forefront DAO, because those people were all involved in this project, and were a big help. And of course, I'd like to thank Brad for giving his time to talk to me, and I'd like to thank Mitzi, also from Index Coop, whom I did talk to for this project, but none of that stuff is going to end up probably coming out, sorry to say, for various reasons. So yeah, enough rambling. Thank you so much for checking this out, and I will see you next Tuesday. Oh my God. Is that your water?
This is my water bottle, yeah. Keeps me hydrated.
Yeah, for the next decade.
This is actually, believe it or not, this is how much you should be drinking every day.
Could you introduce yourself and let us know what you do at Index Coop?
Sure thing. Should have I worn a more formal attire for this interview? Too late now.
A suit? No. I've got pajama pants on right now, so it's all good.
That's good. So I am Brad, or B Radley, in Discord. I've been with the Coop for about, I'm going to say 12 months now, losing track of time a little bit. And I'm doing a mix of things there. It's actually really hard to put a title on it, I guess. So at the moment, I'm helping predominantly with the community nest. We'll probably get into this, but essentially the way the Index Coop is structured is we have a bunch of these decentralized nests. Community nest is focused specifically on talent and onboarding, which is what I guess we're going to be talking about now. We're also focused on the non-contributor community, building an engaged and serving our community of token holders. And I guess one major consideration for the Index Coop is we're kind of unique in the fact that we build a bunch of different index products that track different themes. So we have a bunch of different communities within our community. So that's something we have to take into consideration when we think about onboarding. So I help with Community Nest, also doing a bit to help with, governance, organizational structure and conversations. And yeah, that's the high level.
I never thought about this, but have there been any wars? Like, are the GMI people like mad at the bed people or whatever? Like, oh, bed is a much better investment. You guys are all wrong.
It's actually a really good question, because the way that we develop the index products, the idea is there's no significant overlap. So we would have like one product, which is let's just say DeFi Pulse, which is our first kind of flagship product. And that product tracks, I guess, the blue chip DeFi protocols, whereas GMI is the DeFi 2.0. And so the way that it's constructed is we won't have the same underlying tokens. Some of our products do, like Forefront, for example. We're building a product with them now, and that's going to be a social token index. And one of the tokens in that index is the same as an NFT index that, well, I don't know if I'm supposed to be sharing that, but that we may or may not be releasing at some point. So there are some overlap, but we try to keep it set up in a way where the communities are a little bit different and there's not a need for this conflict.
In your mind, what does onboarding mean in something somewhere like Index Coop?
Okay, so firstly, I think I'm a beginner to intermediate DAO user myself. We're all trying to figure this out, so I don't have to worry
Me
too much
too.
about that. Yeah. So what does onboarding mean? It's really hard to answer that. Since I've joined, it's been like an ever evolving process. And I guess one thing that I've learned about onboarding and about everything in the DAO is the most important thing you can do is learn to hold competing tensions or hold these competing paradoxes. It's actually Zach from Coordinate who taught me that and speaks a lot about that, which I find really interesting. So when I first joined, I will, this is a long-winded way of getting to your question, but when I first joined the Index Coop, it was very wide open. Everybody could come in, pitch ideas, contribute, which was really cool. And so when I first came in, I helped rebuild the onboarding process to make it a little bit more seamless. But we came to a harsh reality, which I think a lot of DAOs are actually going through at the moment, where just flooding the DAO with more people is just not conducive to a productive environment, especially when you don't have really strong higher level objectives. So we've been going through this process, and we actually just opened up our community welcome orientation call for the first time in a few months this morning. So I guess like onboarding, ever evolving process, and it's really about, I guess, enabling contributors to wayfind, to find their own path, because it's very different to Web 2, and that you're not coming in and trying to impress the boss or to fill a very specific role. It's more about building context, learning how you can build trust, and build context, deliver value, rather than expecting just to step into a predetermined role. So as much as the onboarding process can facilitate that empowerment, I think that's the best direction to be heading in.
So funny enough, Jates and I both had a similar experience with the Bronze Owl Quest version of Index Coop's onboarding, which is we started it, we watched the video. I don't think you were part of the video, I don't remember. And then I was presented with a onboarding call at midnight my time, and I was like, and she also never went to any calls. So like, is that onboarding working?
Yeah, that's a good point. I guess the way that I think about this is, one, I would like to think that Web3 is different in that it's a more open ecosystem, right? And the boundaries between DAOs should be really thin. So if somebody was to come to our welcome call, we still want to give them an understanding of what a DAO is and get them to think about this idea of wayfinding rather than the traditional organizational on-ramp. But as for the education that you just mentioned, I think that this is why it's so important to have really strong and clear and consistent messaging as to what the higher level objectives of the DAO are. Because for us, for the Index Coop, like we're a product DAO. We need to ship product to be sustainable and to be successful. And I think there was a bit of an incongruence potentially between the initial onboarding that we had, say, 6 months ago, and what the longer term mission was. And what I mean by that was initially, the idea was anybody can come in and contribute. If you've got skills, come in and contribute. Whereas when you actually get involved in the DAO, there is like a real bias toward action and an understanding that we really need to serve our audience by delivering really successful products. So we didn't have that very clear, and I feel like we do have some more clarity and consistency with that now, which is really good. And you're 100% right. So I feel like it might turn off some people that will come in and then realize like, hey, I'm not really into this, product centric, deliver to the customers. I'm more interested in, like media or content curation, and maybe something like Friends with Benefits or Forefront is more suitable for me to contribute to.
Yeah, but I imagine at that point, like you guys are trying to grow your like community that isn't necessarily banging out new indexes. So that could maybe be where they go, I guess.
Yeah, it's 100% what we're doing now. So originally the onboarding was just for people that wanted to contribute. And now what we're trying to emphasize is like all contributors are also community members, but we can have really engaged, amazing community members who aren't necessarily interested in banging out indexes. As you said, they might just be really interested in the products. And for those guys, it doesn't have to be a strict, understanding how to write the smart contracts that enable these industry products to exist. It's more about like, I'm super interested and stoked in social tokens and the future of social DAOs, or I'm super interested and excited about the metaverse. So I can buy that product, and I want other people to buy that product too, because that bolsters my community and I've got skin in the game. So yeah, there's all these different areas for onboarding, and we are trying to now set up the onboarding in a way where it's like a space for community members to become really engaged. Excuse the background noise. And then for people that do really want to contribute to the core team, there's a separate pathway there as well.
I'm sorry, you've probably gone through this a million times, but can you tell us the story of Index Coop's onboarding since you joined?
Yeah, so when I joined 12 months or so ago, the Copper Owl Quest was in place, and it was one of the first things that I did was to help revamp that Copper Owl Quest. And the idea with the Copper Owl Quest is it was just a pathway, as you probably saw, for people to go new to the community to becoming a contributor. And the evolution is exactly what we just spoke about now. So we improved that process to make it more seamless for people to come in and contribute. But we reached a point where we were scaling really quickly horizontally without those North Star guides in place. And in about December last year, we embarked on like a series of organizational change workshops, which is led by a guy called Joe. Joe's an absolute legend. So he facilitated a bunch of workshops. Actually, one helped us find some more autonomy as a DAO from some of the founding partners. So the founders of Index Coop were Set Protocol, set of an amazing bunch of engineers who create the technology infrastructure that underpins all the products that we create. And then DeFi Pulse, you probably heard of, they were the original methodologist. And so December last year was the point where we tried to get more autonomy back from the founders as a DAO. And it was also where we embarked on implementing things that helped us have clearer objectives for where we were heading. And so we developed these nests, and then we modified the onboarding process so it wasn't just anybody would come in and contribute. It was more people would come in, depending on what their skill set was, they would be able to then connect with the nests. So rather than just myself saying, yes, you're a bronze owl, when I have no context on what that person's doing, we wanted to distribute that decision to the actual nest. So someone come in and said, hey, I got 10 years of TradFi experience. go and speak to the BD team, and then the nests have the autonomy to progress the owls through the owl levels. And then I guess the next evolution of that is probably started in January, February, where we moved to a seasons model. And again, just trying to really focus our first season on some really clear objectives. And I would say it's harder to now become a contributor at the Index Coop, but it's just as we're trying to find this alignment. So now the Bronze Owl Quest, we're hoping for it to start after somebody's gained the context and expressed some interest in contributing. And then we're currently creating a new community welcome quest that's more for people just onboarding into the community. Did that make sense, or did I lose you? It's a bit of a waffle.
It does make sense. So a slight aside, because I've been seeing this, like, I've been in crypto less than a year and in DAOs since maybe December. But even the short amount of time I've been watching, the doors have been closing in an interesting way. Like, it's not that the doors are closing, it's that, just like you said, like a lot of DAOs are like, we can't just let everyone in. Like, this is not how organizations work, right? Does that make you sad? Or is that just one of those things that, like, it's like, well, this was an inevitability and we all saw it coming. But do you feel like we're losing anything there?
Yeah, definitely. It does make me sad, and it's a bummer. I can see both sides as well. It comes back to this holding these competing tensions, right? Like the ideal of the DAO is anybody can come in and contribute and pitch ideas. But at the end of the day, like, there needs to be a sustainable business model for most DAOs to make this work. And every DAO is different, and every DAO is trying to navigate its point along like a decentralization spectrum, right? And for us, we were way out of whack. We were scaling too fast horizontally without being aligned on the objectives. So we did. It's true. Like, we had to, like, close the doors, which is a bummer because it means we're losing a shit ton of potential. Am I able to say that? It's all good. We're losing a lot of potential creativity and probably turning away people who could have been amazing contributors. But it's just about trying to find that balance. And I think once we have the systems in place and we have those really clear objectives and we're actually a sustainable business, then we can look at trying to push further toward decentralization and allow these different nests to pop up horizontally. I think that a guy called Peter Pan, who is an advisor at 1KX, who you've probably heard of, he's written a bunch of amazing resources and material, and he's been speaking a lot about this horizontal scaling, where, once the DAOs have a clear North Star, there should be an opportunity for other groups to pop up and try to be able to get funding and achieve these objectives in a really, like, bottoms up way. But for the moment, yeah, lots of DAOs are navigating this same challenge, which is just trying to find a balance between sustainability and alignment and also having an open ecosystem. But it's definitely not fully decentralized, I don't think.
Because you guys, as I'm sure you know, are kind of just one of the sort of, like, the DAOs people point to as, like, they've got this down, this onboarding thing. So it was a good, like, anchor point for us. But leave it to the DAO space to be like, actually, that's all changing, like, tomorrow, which is great. So can you walk us through what's changing in the new system? Has it rolled out yet? Like where are we at on this thing?
Yeah, so it's not going to be a perfect rollout, right? Like, the idea here is continual iteration. We're going to put in place what's best, and get that feedback loop happening to understand how to build a better process. So the major changes are, we've built a Web3 native onboarding flow. So people can come and we can direct them to a central point, which is Web3 native. You connect your wallets, you run through these steps, and those steps are really about delivering context in the shortest amount of time. So we actually worked with two really cool guys, Rav and Greg. They have a platform called catapult.xyz, and they're really interested in building onboarding flows for DAOs. So they came into our DAO, they integrated into our nest, they learned about our onboarding challenges, and we've put them through absolute hell, to be honest, because when they started this journey with us, we were onboarding everybody, and we had to evolve the platform with them to be more community focused as well. So catapult.xyz, Rav and Greg. They also have a company called DAOlicious, which helps people, find the most suitable DAO. They'll be so stoked that I plugged them on this, so I hope it gets to them somehow. And so you go through that onboarding flow, and the goal is just to get people on a real call as quickly as possible, because we've been speaking to like Bankless and Gitcoin and a bunch of other DAOs, and we realized just how important that initial human touch is. And when somebody gets to the end of that flow, they can book that community welcome call, and they hopefully have a little bit of context. And then we're going to, we haven't finished this resource yet, but we'll deliver them a resource that gives a bunch of context gaining links, like how to navigate the Discord, how to look through Notion, how to work in the forum, how to understand governance. And then we get them on the call, and that's the call that we've pivoted to be more community focused, with an additional portion dedicated to contributors.
Right. Okay, cool. So this is 1.0 right now.
This is 5.0. Probably 10.0 by the end of the year.
So for sure. So you just mentioned one thing, but like what? I mean, you mentioned a couple things. So, like what other problems is the new onboarding flow trying to solve?
So I guess the main problems that you would think of, which is, onboarding takes time from existing core contributors, and those existing core contributors also need to invest time to be completing other projects and delivering things. So having like a Web3 native, really clear and concise onboarding flow helps with that. It means that community managers or the current team don't need to invest so much time answering like basic questions or helping people understand our products and what we do. So that would be the first one, just automating away some of those things. The second one would be, I guess the second big thing is just alignment, which was lacking, which was spoken about before. It's just ensuring that everybody understands what we're doing and where we're heading, and delivers that to people in a really clear and concise way. And then third would be just helping people like gather the foundational information that they need to have a good experience with the Coop. So as you guys have found, like it's super overwhelming trying to join or get involved in a DAO, and there's no like one. We originally tried to map out like a really clear path. This is step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, and we soon realized like it just doesn't work because there's so many different ways to get involved and contribute. So we tried to understand as a group, okay, like what is I think somebody else explained this really well. QZ from Gitcoin, it's like you need to give somebody a compass, rather than give somebody a compass rather than a map. Like the foundational things they need to navigate, to have a good experience, to build context, to learn who to speak to, so that they can then forge their own journey.
And I'm trying to do this with my team actually, but like where you kind of have to teach someone to pursue what they want, because that's not how society has taught them to behave, maybe. I feel like we're taught to look for rule sets and instructions and authority, and you know, rather than say like I'm going to make this mine, um, kind of by default.
Yeah, so like what you just said there, I think is like so important. And if you speak to anybody who's been in this space for long enough, you can see they start to realize and they're starting to think about how, hang on a second, like these aren't just organizations for decentralized products or Web3 applications. Like this is how we're supposed to exist and operate. And as you said, like that's a broken model where we're looking for specific leadership or instructions. And I mean, just to give like a pretty out there example, where I live in Australia, we've had a lot of really bad flooding, and we had terrible government response, like absolutely atrocious. And the army didn't arrive for ages, and it was so bad. And just seeing the community like step up and come together and start organizing and coordinating themselves really effectively, like they're the kind of skills that I think, I mean, we're getting really deep down the rabbit hole now, but they're the kind of skills that I think we need to develop for society to evolve, and the DAO model is just a more efficient, emergent way of that happening. And so my hope, and I'm sure many others, is that this whole DAO thing is going to expand to be much bigger than decentralized products or degens. It is a little bit disappointing in DAOs that it's the people that are able to articulate themselves and speak up that often get the best opportunities in a DAO. Like if I'm being honest, me being a white male who's had some similar experience in Web 2 has helped me a lot. And it would have been more difficult if I was quieter spoken from a different demographic, trying to do the same thing in a DAO, which I'd really love for us to move past. But in terms of like innovation, giving people the space to like to step up and come up with innovative ideas and experiment and like embrace a culture that embrace like failure and experimentation, like that part of it is definitely something that's happening in this space, which is really good. And that's where a lot of the excitement is coming from, I think. And then the other thing that I was thinking as well is, I think it might have been a Vitalik conversation with somebody where he was just talking about giving people the like the financial freedom to not, if people aren't worried about like how they're making money or how they're going to make ends meet the next week, then it changes the whole dynamic and people have that space to be creative and innovative. And so, I mean, you're going to talk about compensation next, but this is another really important conversation. And I really love how Carolyn from Forefront was speaking about trying to understand each individual contributor's needs and requirements and making it human centric. So putting the person first. So I think that's really important as well, to create that space for innovation. And yeah.
What is the onboarding system, either the old school Copper Owl Quest or the new Flow? What do you think it does to address people that are in wildly different time zones or have maybe less time to participate or maybe speak a different language, or like you said, people that are different personality types, like, you know, you're sort of quiet genius types, like how are you sort of like trying to bring everyone in, because we need them all, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's tough is the answer to that. And I just want to say, like, we definitely, by no stretch of the imagination, have we nailed that. And I think we could be doing a way better job of that, because I strongly believe that having like a widely or wildly diversified DAO is long term a really sustainable and smart option. Um, So one, we haven't done a great job of this, and we have actually squashed some initiatives that were like regional based, and it was really hard decisions that people had to make to do that. And I don't think anybody wanted to do it, but it was about like we need to make sure that we've got a sustainable business model before we scale. So that's the first part. We haven't done an amazing job of this yet. The second part is I think just that we have done quite well is we do keep top of mind diversity initiatives. So we have a WIC group, like Women in Index, and we're exploring diversity, equity, inclusion, like DEI initiatives that really promote these kind of things. And then within our nest, like within Community Nest, we are continually trying to reinforce that it's not a popularity contest with compensation when we try to decentralize things. Like, yes, we do need to get work done, and we have objectives that we're trying to hit, but at the same time, we also need to be really mindful of creating like an open and inclusive environment for anyone. And if anybody comes in with a really good idea, there should be space for that as well, because as we've found, like it's not always the people who are the loudest that are delivering the most impact to the DAO as well. So it's an ongoing challenge. I think it's just important that every DAO puts at least some resources and effort toward keeping that top of mind.
As I've been watching Index mostly from a distance over the last 6 months or so, you guys the Index message used to be very simple. Like there was DeFi Pulse, and that was the thing to buy. Now there's at least six. There's the leverage products. There's 2 leverage products. There's GMI. There's 6 or 7 products you guys have. Like, is it harder to tell the story of what the DAO is doing when you're trying to onboard people now that things are getting a little more complicated?
Yeah, it's really dynamic. So we have over 13 products. Like we had 2 products released in the last couple of weeks. We've got another product due to be fast tracked and launched next week. So it's hard to keep up. It's not so hard to tell the story, right? And this is something that I think our leadership team has done really, really well. Like we implemented a leadership council, which was really controversial, leadership in a DAO, yada, yada, which I understand both sides of that argument. But something they did really well was like, what is our core message? And it's that we build financial products that unlock prosperity for everyone. So, we're trying to make investing simple, and these products are like widely different. And we have a really aggressive product launch roadmap this year. So it's going to be even more difficult, but I guess it's just interesting to see how this evolves. Like in my past life, I contracted with a bunch of different companies to help with like onboarding users. And this is a whole different story, because you're not just onboarding users, you're onboarding like a community, and the health and the vibrance of that community really determines how successful the products are. I know that's the same for most other products as well, but really, really more prominent, I think, in the DAO space. And so I guess what we want to do is have like a really clear North Star objective, which is all around like unlocking this financial prosperity for everybody. And then we have this other layer, which are these like sub-communities, if you will. And those sub-communities are based around the themes of the tokens underlying in the products. And we have lots of people that go between both. And it's not too bad, right? Because we don't have that many composite products. Like composite are the products that track the themes, like the DPI, MVI, BED, GMI. I'm just looking now, data. And then our other range of products are more for traders. Like they're not really toys. They're some of them are automated. So that's a different kettle of fish. But yeah, I think as long as we keep that North Star pretty aligned, it's It's good. It's exciting. I love seeing new products launch, and the part that I love the most is just seeing the partnerships that we're able to create as well. Like with Forefront, it's been really great to work with them, and um, some of the other methodologists are just really cool, really smart, and a whole different community that comes with that as well.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are basically a partnership engine, basically from the floor up. That's the kind of the business model. Do you is there a concern that, like, let's say you guys have 100 products, will those little micro communities be able to sustain themselves if things get that, divided?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think about this all the time. Also, I love the partnership engine. I just wrote that down. Thank you for that. Um, yeah, so it's definitely going to be a challenge. This is why I think it's just really important to have a really clear process in place to empower these sub communities to grow. And if it comes, like, this is the challenge we're going through at the moment, right? Like, when we want to be the central point. So if somebody wants to buy one of our products, then they come to us, and that's only because, like, we know the product really well, and we're able to provide really fast turnaround and support, and give the end user, like, exactly what they need. And we want to be able to bolster those communities, but at the same time we don't want to stunt the growth. So I think if that turns out that, like, GMI is just busting out of our Discord, they've got way too many conversations happening, they need to spin up a new Twitter, something like that, then they should be able to do that. And to scale as like a sub DAO, I guess that would be a good next step forward. And so long as we maintain, like, a really strong relationship with the methodologist, who's the person who develops the strategy behind the underlying behind the product, as long as we keep that relationship really strong, it's in everybody's best interest for that to happen as well, right? Then we're okay. But definitely going to be a challenge, and I foresee some potential tension there, so it'll be interesting.
I imagine there is tension. Picturing it in my mind, I bet there are camps in Index Coop where that want to keep things simple and have few products, and then there's another camp that says, like, no, we want to be the vanguard of, crypto. So we want pages and pages of products. Would I be correct in that assumption?
I haven't heard too many conversations. I don't want to speak for anybody else. I haven't heard too many conversations about capping the products that we launch. Obviously, there's value in making sure we do a really good job with the products that we have. But growth can obviously come from growth of a single product, or growth from additional product, from revenue stream from additional products. And this is why we have a lot going on behind the scenes with product discovery, go to market research to try and understand, like, what the community, what people want, like, what kind of products do they want to see, what products do they need, what are they interested in. And then we have a whole team that's dedicated to creating a product prioritization roadmap. So we're ensuring that we're not just launching anything, we're launching products that people actually want to buy. So that process is understandably slow, and it's just like I've got a huge appreciation for what goes into researching and developing a product. I really thought it was more simple than it was before I started having some conversations with the product team and the engineering team. So
When does onboarding end? Like when do you release the little birdie and then cry a single tear as it flies away? Or does that ever happen?
no, never. It's continual. No, I guess if you were to look, so we recently dropped a proposal on the forum that was our level progression. And our level progression is just how we can view, or how current contributors can progress through the different hour levels. We're trying to make it bottoms up as much as possible. There has to be some centralization in decision making, but progressively trying to decentralize that process. So I guess technically you could say that the onboarding ends once somebody becomes a bronze owl. Because if somebody now becomes a bronze owl, it means they've integrated themselves, they've gained context, they've built trust, or they've filled an immediate role requirement that we have, or they've built context, built trust, made consistent contributions within a particular nest, and the nest have decided collectively, like, hey, this person's making like a really valued member of the DAO. And so the way we've got it set up at the moment is, like in community nests, for example, we're using Coordinate, and if somebody wants to take on a bounty or something like that, then they do the bounty, they communicate with the person who created the bounty. If they're interested in taking more tasks that we have currently within projects, or they have great ideas, then they can do those tasks and take on a project. And then as a group, like the entire group, we come together and we decide who should become a bronze owl. And that's the thought process behind that. So it probably ends at when bronze owl starts. Again, this is new and a work in progress.
Well, thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you guys. Great to meet you.